Welcome to the 10th annual Global Access Bars Day. Well, actually, you've been here if you've been watching the stream, so thank you so much for being here and celebrating this day with us when we get to celebrate the gift of access bars and the change and the possibilities and the peace it spreads in the world. And we are about to have our finale segment. We have with us today the creators of Access Consciousness. First up, we have Dr. Dain Heer, who's the co-creator. He will be on with us in just a moment. Welcome, Dr. Dain.
Thank you. I'm so excited. Hi, everybody around the world and in the room. Hi.
So this year for the 10th annual Global Access Bars Day, we created basically the biggest weekend of change ever so far at Access Consciousness.
Oh my goodness, I had so many people after yesterday's bars class say, the world is different today. I'm like, I know, that was us. That's what we do.
So yesterday we had literally the biggest Access Bars class ever, with over 3,600 people from all over the world. Lots of live people here in Houston with us, people joining from countries, grouping together, streaming in. Was that something that you've always asked for?
Oh, you're gonna make me cry. Yeah. Oh man, what always happens for me when we talk about this is I look back at where I was 22 years ago in an office smaller than the stage, and having my bars run and how it changed my life. And then when that happened, I remember in that moment, I'm like, I want the world to know this is possible. Because I saw so many people in my life that were struggling. And see, the thing that bars did for me was like quite literally save my life, but that's not enough of a description of it. What it did was, it took a guy who wanted to live like this and was only able to create this and showed him that this was possible. And there are no words for that. There are no words for going from total contraction to a sense of the space of possibilities where I remember I would get bars once a week. And the first time I got bars, I went from to, you know? And I kept taking as many deep breaths as I could. And I was like, I hope it doesn't go away. I hope it doesn't go away. I hope it doesn't go away. And so the next week, the space went like this. And then also I would get a tool to use each week, one of the Access Consciousness tools. And every time the space wanted to go like this, like it had in the past, it would go, oh, back to the space. And then the next week I would get bars and the space was like this. And I can't describe that to people. It's something you have to experience, you know? And so at the point, I remember at a point a couple months into getting bars every single week where I had this thing where I was like, this would be so cool if, because what I had heard was when you run bars or when you do a process, like somewhere around 35,000 to 350,000 people get free of the fixed points of view you're letting go of because of your connections to them. And I thought, what would it be like to have a stadium of people? And I was like, wow, if we had a stadium of people, we could we could bring space to the world. And so, wow. So the answer is yes. But did I ever think it would happen? I mean, if you look back when I started 22 years ago, it was a different world. And it was a world that was much less oriented toward a space of possibilities, at least in my perspective and in working with people. And now it's like people are actually desiring it, which is what I've desired for the world forever.
Forever.
Yeah.
Well, yesterday, you've said before that the gift of us being aware of ourselves as the drop in the ocean, and also aware that we're connected to everything and everyone as the ocean.
Yeah.
So yesterday we have, thousands of people, individual drops around the world, and this tsunami and ocean of change.
Yeah.
Can you talk more about how Access Bars contributes to us seeing ourselves as the gift of the drop, but also connected to the oneness of the universe?
Yeah, because it ends the points of view that create you as separate from everyone and everything else. Because what all of Access does is it only makes you more of you, the being. It's not artificial, in other words. Ooh, let there be light.
Woo, light in the room.
Oh my God, this is totally working, people. The room went, woo, I'm like, all right, cool. It makes you, what it does, it lets go of the things that you have been functioning from or bought or living as that are not you. And the thing is, the idea is that we are infinite beings. And I used to hear that in some of the stuff I had done before Access, but I was like, okay, then why can't I pay rent? What, if I'm an infinite being, why can I not pay rent? They're like, well, you just need to know you're infinite. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, let me have some practical way of accessing that. Let me have a way of actually experiencing that. And as I say that, I realize that's what I got with my first bar session and all the ones after that. It's like more access to what that actually is. And we all know. And the thing about this whole conversation about yesterday and bringing a different space to things is that, for me, if we're doing something, it's got to be practical. It's got to work in your life right now. It's got to work in the trenches of life. Because I did so many things that were like, oh yeah, changing this space and lights, and didn't ever do anything. I'm like, what are you talking about? Why are you saying that we created this massive change when I don't feel any different? My life isn't any different. I don't have more sense of happiness, joy, or space. But the thing about Access is it's very practical. It's very pragmatic, while at the same time being weird as fuck, which I think is so great, because the original meaning of weird was of spirit, fate, or destiny. So acknowledging that it's very practical and pragmatic, it changes your friggin' life in the areas you need it to change, and you're the one who can determine what those are with the processing. And bars changes the space from which you live your life. It actually gives you space in your life. So what that means is you walk into a situation where before you used to contract, or you're interacting with a person where you used to contract, or you look at your bank account, where you used to contract. And what happens is now you don't contract, you have space. And what that creates is you're now present with what's going on. You're not avoiding it. You're not trying to disappear because it's painful. You're like, oh, I can be present with this. And when you can be present with something, you can change it. So for me, it's got to be practical and pragmatic, and also make you more present. Oh my God, 3 Ps. I just came up with something. 3 Ps. I'm going to forget those, right about now. So anyway.
But we like 3-letter acronyms
I know,
in Access Consciousness,
exactly.
So this is good. PPP.
PPP.
So one of the things I wanted to talk with you about in this section, if you want to science geek out with me for a little bit.
I'm ready.
Which I know you like this. Okay.
I'm a science geek. I like it.
So,
I like science.
If you all didn't know, I think you are aware. I know you are aware. Recently, they gave the Nobel Prize.
I'm aware.
To 3 quantum physicists. And we talk about with consciousness how we have an unfathomable ability to communicate and connect instantaneously that we cannot get logically.
Yes.
And basically, they now proved with science that you can have particles on opposite ends of the universe and they instantly communicate with each other.
Boom.
Which is so cool. What we've known.
Right.
And now science is like actually proving it.
Well, that's the funny part. Science eventually, hopefully, catches up with us. I mean, there are so many things that we have talked about for years, and then science goes, oh, and everybody goes, oh my God, look at that. I'm like, we've been talking about it for 20 years. But this idea of the quantum entanglements that you're talking about, see, for me, what's interesting is one of the things I've said for a long time is your point of view creates your reality. Reality does not create your point of view. So if you can consider your point of view, like, think of, I don't know, maybe going out in nature or someone that you're around where you just have the space to be everything you are. That's one space from which you can function, let's say. And then think of somebody or some situation that you go into and every single time it feels like, well, what happens with this is your point of view creates your reality. So when your point of view is this is what it's going to create, that's what it creates. But what this does, and so the quantum entanglement idea is also that if I have a point of view about something that's going to show up a certain way, what I do is I affect it to show up that way, which is so simple and once again, earth-shattering, because we keep thinking that life is happening to us. We don't realize that we are manufacturing it by what we think and what we say, because that has an energy too, and also what we do as a result of what we think and say.
So with that, so one of the things that you have said a lot, and you and Gary Douglas, the founder of Access, talk about, is this capacity we have to instantly know and also to be aware of the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions.
Oh, that's fun.
Everyone around us, whether or not we're physically close to them.
Yes.
So how did you guys come to that awareness? And then can you talk a little bit about that and maybe who does it belong to?
Oh, who does it belong to? That's my question. I don't know how they came to that awareness because that was something that was part of Access before I came along.
Wow.
And in fact, on my very first bar session, Shannon O'Hara, the one that ran my bars and quite literally saved my life, she said, hey, we've got all kinds of tools. Do you want to use them? I'm like, yes. And she wrote down, who does this belong to, on a little yellow sticky note for me. And she said, 98% of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions don't belong to you. And I was like, that sounds weird. Okay. And I kind of ignored it because it was just, one of the things about Access is there's so many things you'll hear and you're like, it just doesn't fit into your box of reality. So you're like, well, it must be false because, and then you look at your box of reality and go, I hate this fucking box. So maybe I should take a few of these things in, you know? But that was me. I was like, nah, it just didn't make sense. It's like, you know, my favorite way of trying to describe something like that is where, you know, if somebody came up to you and they're like, yes, I just ate a car. And you're like, what? It's like that. It's like 98% of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions don't belong to you. You're like, what? But that idea that we are that aware speaks to the fact that we are actually primarily, firstly, energetic beings. And that's a long discussion I won't go into right now. But so what happens is, like, if you ever thought of somebody and they text you, or, okay, who was thinking of whom? You know, who thought of whom, which is the chicken and which is the egg? And what's funny is people are like, oh my God, I thought of them and they texted me, oh my God. And I'm like, yeah, quantum physics, dum-dum, of course. Why were you thinking of them? Because they were thinking of you, thinking about what to text you. And you pick up on it. Where were they? In another country. I know, distance is irrelevant, okay? On a quantum level, distance is irrelevant. And so, oh goodness, I could go so sciencey geeky right now. I'm not gonna go there, okay. So who does this belong to is my question. Who is talking through me? No. And so anyway, she gave me this, and I woke up with the depression that I had had a few days later, and I'm like, oh my God, I thought it was gone this time. Shit, I knew things were different, but oh my God. I look over at my clock where I had put this little yellow sticky note. I didn't even like try to read it. I just saw, who does this belong to? And all of it went away. And I was like, I had the space again, and I was like, dude. There were no dudes around. I was just talking to whatever dude might listen, right? I'm like, dude. I mean, I cannot tell you, mind officially blown, okay? So for me, I've had a couple experiences like that with who does this belong to, and I think probably because I was gonna bring it to a lot of other people that would think it was bullshit, that I really had to know it rather than You know what I mean? And so I had another experience where I had this guy I was treating in my chiropractic office, and I'd been treating him for months, and he was at an 8 out of 10 on the pain scale, 10 being childbirth, okay? And it was from low back pain. And what would happen is he'd go to lay down, and it would take him 5 minutes to relax before I could even start to work on him as he was lying face down, right? And I just had this experience, you know, and he comes in a few days later, and he goes, you know, and he goes to lie down, and the only thing that pops into my head is this little yellow sticky note that says, "Who does this belong to?" So here I am, I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm like, "Hey, who does this pain belong to?" And he pushes himself up instantly and goes, "My wife!" Again, I was like, dude, I think whoever, like consciousness, whoever his name is Dude or her name is Dude, okay? Their names are Dude, okay? And so he did this. So I asked him, I'm like, what? Tell me. He's like, oh my God, I cannot believe I never thought of this before. He said, my wife was in such intense back pain. She had injured her back. He said she was in such pain, it didn't go away, so she had a laminectomy, which is a very intense back surgery. He said that did not take the pain away, it just increased it. She was taking the equivalent of morphine to get rid of the pain, and she was half dead, walking around, and she was still sensing the pain, right? And he said, I'll never forget it. She was walking by me one day, and I thought to myself, you know, I would do anything to get this woman I love out of pain. He said within a few, I don't know whether it was days or weeks, he said within a while, her pain started going away. And as it did, I started getting back pain. And I was like, are you kidding me? Dude, you know, like, whoa. And so having him let this go was like, I mean, in that session, we got him over 98% of his pain. I'm like, how are you doing? He's like, oh, I got a little thing here. I'm like, in comparison to before, he's like, oh, 98%. I was like, dude. So that's the language of consciousness right now, dude. But could you imagine what it's like? Like, here I am. I became a chiropractor because I wanted to create miracles in people's bodies and lives. And I knew people that were doing it. Like, I knew these amazing healers. And here I was not having that effect. It was part of why I wanted to get the heck out of here, you know? I wanted to get the flock out of here. And then and then these things happen. I was like, I mean, it's like all my Christmases and Hanukkahs and Kwanzas came at once, you know? Hence my red shirt. I am now Santa Claus. Okay.
Well, and with that, one of that just amazing connection we have and our ability to take all sorts of things from other people.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, you go ahead.
No, I was just looking at that as you were saying that because we have this amazing connection, but the way it's slanted in the world we live in is to connect to their yuck, their stuck, and their what the fuck.
Yeah.
You know, like we perceive the heaviness in other people. And as probably most of you watching and listening, you probably want to make people feel better. You probably want to heal them all. Well, the only resource you have until you get who does this belong to and until you get some of these access tools and concepts is to try to take it away, like the guy did. But what does that do? Now you're suffering. What does that do for our world? The sum total of suffering has not changed. And here's the other part. Remember, your point of view creates your reality. So somewhere there's some point of view that people have that they use to create their suffering for whatever reason. A lot of times people think it's the only way they can be loved or they're a victim or whatever their story is. But what happens that I've seen is we're so aware, we don't want them to hurt, we try to take it into our world, which, by the way, can we just say, dude, that we can even do that? Okay, but how often are you around other people and you feel heavy, you feel unhappy, you feel all these things? I mean, just that one concept right there, that is something I would like science to study. Okay, the fact that we can actually do that energetically. This energy is forming their world and their body and their worldview, and we are able to take it into our body and our life. Dude, like just that one thing right there. And this is just one of many things that we talk about in Access as though it's, you know, like breathing, because it is to us once you get the sense of how it works. But so you take it on, and most of the time, if they have not changed the point of view they're using to create it as real, they will either remanufacture it or even intensify it so it doesn't go away because it matches their worldview. And so now you're suffering and so are they, which the only true solution, if you will, is more consciousness. What do I mean? Well, if you get more conscious, you don't have to take on their pain and suffering because you realize it doesn't work. Consciousness and awareness are very synonymous. If they get more conscious, they can undo what makes them believe suffering is necessary and real and true, and that it has value to them and is somehow something they must maintain. And so now, if we have more consciousness, you get lighter, they get lighter, and guess what, kids? What our world is experiencing is a sum total of all of us. The more lightness you be, the lighter our world gets. It's so friggin' simple. It's like all the drops. Like, imagine all the drops in the ocean. You know, imagine only 2 of them are like happy drops. That's a depressing fucking ocean, you know? Imagine now that like 90% of them are happy drops. You're like, woo! And then all the other drops are like, oh, if they're happy, okay, fine, I guess I can too. You know?
Yeah. Well, I let you know in the story you told, your personal story, you really then asked for a miracle to show up, or you were going to be out of here.
Yep.
And yesterday I met a beautiful woman in the audience who told me a very similar story. She was in the hospital and literally dying, and on her Facebook feed came up an Access Consciousness video. She said, I don't know, I had never heard of it before, and it was about asking for a miracle. So she just asked, and the story's a bit longer, but she like instantly healed herself and was better. And can you talk about that power of asking and receiving, and how that actually, and how that may relate to quantum entanglements, but what we're doing when we ask and are willing to receive a miracle, lightness, space, all of that show up.
Yeah, let's talk about the ask, because what happens, we're a big fan of asking questions in Access. Like, what else is possible? Big fans. Because anytime you ask a question, what you're doing is, most people are walking down this rut they've called their life, and they've walked back and forth so many times. There are walls to the left and right. And when you ask a question, it's like you open up space for something else to show up. That's you. And another fundamental concept is choice. When you make the choice to ask a question about something rather than come to conclusion. Because anytime you come to conclusion, you're stuck with what you concluded. When you ask a question, that's a choice to go, hey, universe, hey, consciousness, hey, spirit, hey, God, whatever the heck it is for you. Doesn't matter. Hey, things, hey, I'd like something different. I'm willing to allow something different even if my life changes. See, and now if you look at the situation she was in, it speaks volumes in a sense, because what most people are doing is they're not willing to have something different because they're not suffering enough yet. But if you're in the place where you're about to die, well, what do I have to lose? Okay, I'll have a miracle. You know what I mean? But isn't that weird? So she has the power, but prior to getting to the point where she's got this terrible thing going on, where she's going to leave, she's not willing to allow it. I understand that one personally, okay? So this is the interesting part then. It's like at what point do we allow ourselves to receive something different constantly because we're aware that something different always will create greater for us? And so the idea here with the quantum entanglements is you're not, see, here's the other interesting part is geeking out. Okay. The other interesting part is they talk about quantum entanglements, and the only way they are able to study it, and I mean, it's a miracle that they could study it, right? And you're like, whoa, that's amazing. Wow, you should get the Nobel Prize. Oh my God, they did. But what they're not talking about, they're talking about quantum entanglement, the subatomic particle to subatomic particle, okay? But what they're not talking about is you in quantum entanglements with everything you are willing to be an influencer of.
Yeah.
What? Wait a minute. What are you talking about, bro? See, I told you, geeky. Okay, but what does that mean? That's basically an explanation that everything you are willing to be connected to, you have an effect on. Whoa, dude. Okay, So now some of you, your brains are like, you're like, I thought I was going to follow what they're saying, but I don't understand a word they're talking about. Yeah, but that's actually the energy of it. That energy or space, similar thing, it's like the space of what we're talking about is exactly that, where your mind can't follow because it's not linear. It's a direct engagement with the energetics of what this is. And we, once again, are energetic beings. So what we do, it's kind of like, have you ever been around somebody who was angry?
Yes.
Oh my God, me too. When you're around somebody who's angry, what happens? Do you notice you kind of get like, it affects you physically, right? Well, let's look at that. That's like a quantum entanglement right there, okay? Their energetic state is affecting yours. Have you been around somebody who's really happy and grateful?
Yes.
Like right now?
Yeah.
Like all these happy, grateful people? Oh my God, it's so good. That creates a different space, right?
Yeah.
So we affect each other energetically all the time, and people want to pretend that doesn't exist, as though, no, the world is linear. No, it's fucking not. The world is miraculously, magically, quantumly entangled, and we keep acting like that doesn't exist. We keep acting like miracles don't exist. Well, what's a miracle? Something that science can't explain, basically. Guess what? Science can't explain most of what's actually going on in the world.
Yeah.
Not that I don't like scientists. Not saying that. Assholes. No, just kidding. Totally kidding. I know there's some scientists watching, and I just playing. That's all.
Can I just say, you're so fun to interview because you always, it's like you know the things that I would like to ask.
You mean almost
Like
like an embodiment of the quantum entanglement?
Almost, yes, like that.
Weird.
Well, you know when you when you talked about this willingness to be connected and what we can then affect, you have, I believe it is your most famous video on YouTube, which is called.
I'm a
Hello?
YouTuber, amongst other things. I Googled myself the other day, and actually I was Googled by someone I know. Her. No. Somebody on my team Googled me and said, oh my God, you're a YouTuber. I'm like, I've been a YouTuber for like 15 years. But Google knows it now. It's kind of like it's scientifically proven.
That's right.
And also, my sister is my wife.
If you Google it.
I'm like, just because I live in Texas don't mean I got to marry my sister. What the hell's going on here? Anyway, I digress. So if you see my wife on Google, it's my sister. That's right. Don't tell her husband that she got another man, okay? And please do not tell my nieces and nephews that we're married. That would seriously mess them up in the head. Oh my God, I want to do that. I want to go tell them, by the way, your mom and I are married. And then we'll run their bars and try to get them over it. Anyway, sorry. I digressed again.
I love when you digress. So the video that I am mentioning is the one, 7 Things the Universe Would Tell You If You Were Listening.
I love that video personally.
I do too. And you have in there 7 different things or questions, but I want to read this one so I actually get it correct. You say, you are a sleeping giant. There's so much more available in you, as you, and to you than you ever imagined possible. I'd like to ask you about us being those giants, and what all of this, like access consciousness, access bars, questions, contribute to us like awakening that giant up.
Oh, I love that. Here, I need to start by saying being that giant isn't what most people think it is. It's not what we're taught by the world we grew up in, which is you're a giant if you're a billionaire. Have you seen most of the billionaires on the planet? Giant or not so much? See, for me, the giant that you are, and some of you are like, but I still want to be a billionaire. Go for it. But be a billionaire that uses that to change the world for the greater. What about that? See, that's what I see as us. And I know firsthand how it is to feel like you are not big enough to have an impact on anything. And that is one of the biggest lies that we buy. Because your impact is not just personal. is not just about you. As you start to become more aware of what you are capable of, you don't realize it, but that whole quantum entanglement idea, you become a space that empowers others to know what they are capable of just by you existing on this planet. And by you interacting with them also, if that occurs too. But remember, we're all connected. Like, it's not you don't just affect the people that you talk to and work with and live with and all that. The space you choose to be is one drop in the ocean of the space this planet gets to be. And if we can recognize that it's not just being a sleeping giant, if we can look from a slightly different perspective than most people look from. Okay, so I'm gonna try this and see if it works. I don't know, I'm trying something new. Okay, no, just what would have the greatest impact worldwide? One really strong drop that is committed and keeping out all the rest of the drops and just gonna do their thing? Or a drop that has the willingness to communicate and contribute to and receive from all the other drops? I'm crying because that's the world I see us inching toward choosing as we choose more consciousness, because that right there is the embodiment of and as consciousness, where you don't have to separate anymore. You don't have to do judgment anymore. You don't have to make other people wrong. You don't have to make you wrong. You don't have to try to prove that you're right when you feel you're wrong. None of that is even in your world. It's irrelevant, or unrelevant, I guess I should say. The sleeping giants that we are the beings that are actually the drops that are willing to allow the true communion, if you will, and connection with all the other drops, and empower them to the best of, to their willingness to be empowered, but also to see the greatness of each freaking drop out there and realize that they may not see it yet, and you don't have to try to get them to choose it, but your acknowledgement that they are greater than they think creates a space for them to actually step into it when they are ready. I'm gonna cry all over the place.
And you know how you just mentioned, like, it seems like we're inching along towards that. And I know Gary Douglas founded Access Consciousness.
I love him.
I love him too. He's gonna be here in just a couple minutes. And you know, he was the creator of Access Bars, who was alone in his awareness for so many years.
Alone, man.
Alone. And he kept going. And he kept going. And he...
Sorry. I was just looking at, because you see Access now, and you can't, once again, it's like Access ate a car. No. You know, it's like, it's such a, you're like, you just can't fathom that he started Access in his garage in Santa Barbara, okay? That's literally, like, he had 10, 12 people, 20 sometimes, and just kept putting one foot in front of the other because he was willing to follow his knowing, even when everybody else said, you're a nutter, okay? Could you imagine, like, we're talking about what is outside the realm of people's reality, right? Access consciousness 30 plus years ago. Hey! Oh.
He started 3 people.
3 people. 3 people, he just said.
If you are not live in Houston, Gary Douglas just walked in the back of the room.
Yeah. No, I think they saw it on screen, which
great.
is just awesome. And I look at that, I look at the courage, the balls of steel it took to keep going and follow a path that nobody else got. And how do I know nobody else got it? Because I met some of the people that were working with Gary and Access when I started 22 years ago. And these people would say they got it and they would do the exact opposite. And I was like, this is amazing. it's almost like they're working against Gary, but Gary keeps moving forward. And I'm like, this is awesome. That's the life. That's what I want to have. No matter who seems to be working against you, just keep moving forward.
And now, like 35 years later, there are 10,000 facilitators who facilitate the access consciousness work and access bars around the world, and millions of people that have had their bars run. And while Gary makes his way up here, we're going to show a video of one of those drops in the ocean who's a bars facilitator in Brazil, who took access bars into a school in Rio. And we have a little mini video, short little about that documentary. So we'll see that, and Gary will be up with us on stage. Enjoy.
Oof. Hi folks, my name is Dr. Dain Heer. I'm the co-creator of Access Consciousness. And it is such a pleasure to be here with you and share this beauty of an experience that I had, but also the backstory for it, and to share with you the gift of some truly beautiful, incredible people who are doing things to make other people's lives greater. But what really inspires me is what bars facilitators around the world are doing in their own communities to bring this gift of de-stress, of a sense of space and possibilities and joy to people. One of those people is a phenomenal lady by the name of Daniela, a bars facilitator in Brazil. She got together with other bars facilitators and practitioners and actually brought bars to a school within a favela. And they did this all as their gift for everybody in the school. Well, I recently had the fortune of going and visiting that school after they had been doing it for several months. And really, the video speaks for itself. This was one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. Thank you for having us today.
A conversa foi a partir do espaço de que nós podemos criar, através das barras, uma oportunidade para que as crianças se conectem com outros sentimentos, com outras energias vindas delas mesmas. A partir disso, se empoderar muitas vezes, trazendo mais concentração, mais tranquilidade.
Hi everybody!
Welcome to our school.
I know it sounds crazy, but I'm weird.
Eu sei que parece loucura, mas ele é esquisito.
See, for me, the fun in life is where the magic is.
Para ele, a diversão na vida é onde está a mágica.
E a escola se abriu a isso porque já percebia a necessidade de trazer isso para as crianças. Então o impacto social foi grande, o impacto nas crianças, o impacto na escola e nas famílias, né? Como a gente percebeu no contato com os pais, no contato com as famílias e também das professoras, como que as barras trouxeram um funcionamento diferente das crianças diante ao aprendizado e ao comportamento.
Eu me sinto muito calma e muito alegre. Muito feliz também.
Eu me senti melhor, meu estresse melhorou e eu me sinto muito feliz. E toda vez que um dia antes da barra de Axe,
Eu acho que antes eu me distraía muito rápido nas coisas. Agora eu tenho mais foco.
meus colegas, eles eram um pouco agitados. E depois que eles receberam a barra de Axe, eles ficaram menos agitados. Agora estão obedecendo a professora, estão bem melhores. Eu queria que cada vez mais várias pessoas do Brasil tenham mais barra de Axe, que elas se sentem melhores. Eu quero que as pessoas sejam felizes com as barras de Axe.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you for being part of this. I mean, it's like you have no idea what it was like to start with 3 people in a garage and to end up with this. Holy shit, who knew? You know, I was not a good boy when I was young. I did a lot of drugs, sex, and rock and roll. So I did nothing that would make me think this is where I'd end up. But oh my God, am I grateful. I'm grateful for each and every one of you who come and each and every one of you who do this and each and every one of you for every fucking time you do a set of bars. Jesus, you change the world every time. And it's like, it's so amazing to watch the people change, to see the people change. And, you know, it's just, it's miraculous, and it's the joy of miracles that you experience personally, day by day. And the thing about the kids in that school, it was so cute, because we've had access going to several schools around the country. Not in the United States, but around the country. And it has, around the world, it has become something that people admire and receive and desire. And I hope it will be that way one day in the United States. And thank you all for being here.
So Gary, what is that like for you? I mean, you both really, to have started with a few
With
people in
nothing?
your garage. Yeah, with nothing. And then millions of people have had their bars run. Thousands of people take an Access Bars class every month. This month is going to be a little higher than usual since we had several thousand
Yes.
yesterday.
Well, I mean, I think it's amazing because just the fact that, you know, it's like we started from nothing. I've done all kinds of television advertisements, not. I've done all kinds of radio advertisements, not. I've done, you know, I've put promotion out there in every magazine in the world, not. And it's like, and yet we're in 179 different countries. That speaks for you people as the individuals you are, which take it and expand it by the gift you give. You're the dandelions of consciousness. And you're a bunch of dandelions, I say.
Like
So-
a bedazzled lion.
Yes.
So good.
And I, you know, it's like, I just cannot believe it. You know, it's like, these kind of days are a little tough for me. I didn't want to come today because I was afraid I was going to cry, and I already have. So, you know, now it's over, not. And we'll see what happens from here.
Gary, so there's a tagline of Access Consciousness, which is empowering people to know that they know.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the things that happened when I first started Access. I had been involved in a cult. And they said, you can't tell people that because they're not at that level yet. And I said, but they asked a direct question related to that. Why can't they know? Don't you think they probably know if they're asking a question that's that succinct? And they said, they can't know. I went, what? People do know. People do know. You know things all the time. You don't know why you know them. You don't know how you know them, but you just know them. And it's like, why wouldn't you validate that in people instead of trying to hold them down and keep them in a form, structure, significance? So that's how I came up with that, empowering people to know that they know. Because to me, that's the only thing that is valuable in the world, is getting people to recognize what they know. Because under those circumstances, they will change the world.
Wow.
That's what works.
I remember first reading that on the cover of my bars manual. I was like, I don't get that at all. Like, what does that mean? And also, there are so many brilliant, like those quotes that we were seeing before, all from the Access Bars manual.
Yeah.
And there's so much in there. And, you know, yesterday we had thousands of people take that class, receive that manual in so many different languages. And one of the beautiful, we call it the mantra of Access Consciousness, that all of life comes to me with ease, joy, and glory.
Yeah.
Can you guys talk about that as the target of Access and what that is?
It's my target for the world.
Where everything occurs with ease and joy and glory is
Even the
exuberant
bad parts.
What?
Even the bad parts
Yes.
happen with ease, joy, and glory.
Glory is exuberant expression and abundance, which, you know, is not a religious or spiritual concept, but the idea of the good, the bad, and the ugly occurring with ease, which means you navigate it with a sense of space. You can be present with it all and never have to contract. And once again, that seems so beyond reality for people. But if you use that mantra 10 times in the morning, 10 times in the evening, it starts to become your reality.
My oldest son was a drug addict, and he went out in his car. No, he was out in my car. And he had totaled 3 cars already. And he was out in my car, and he was supposedly going to go get a pack of cigarettes and never came back. And so I knew he was doing drugs, and I went, Jesus Christ, what am I gonna do? So I prayed, I went to a prayer, line and did prayers and all that kind of stuff, and then I went to bed and I couldn't sleep. So I started running. All of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. All of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. All of life comes to me, and I fell asleep. Did I believe it? Fuck no. I knew he was gonna total my car. So it's like, but every time I woke up, every time I heard a car door or anything, I'd wake up, I'd start saying it again. At about 6 o'clock in the morning, he returned. He walked in the door, I walked out, and I said, okay, so what's the story? He said, I need help. I want to go to a rehab place. He had never willingly gone to a rehab place before. And it was great, and he got sober. He's been sober ever since. But it was his choice, not mine.
Yeah. And you know, so many of the things we talked about today and is how undefinable a lot of this is. And Gary, you've said definition in itself is a limitation.
Definition by definition alone is limitation. Because as soon as you define something, nothing that's greater than that can come into your awareness. So it's like if you have this place where nothing is definable, nothing is confinable, it's like literally you can't stop what's going to be. You can only facilitate what will be. And that's to me the gift that each and every person on this planet truly is and chooses not to be mostly.
Wow. So strangely, you do have a sort of definition of consciousness.
Yes.
You want to talk about that, what that is?
Consciousness includes everything and judges nothing. Now, the funny part about it is they have all of these churches that are now talking about consciousness. And so I've told people, yeah, go to them, find out what they know. And I said, and ask them what their definition of consciousness is. And they always go, you'll know it when you see it. What's your definition of consciousness? It's where you're more than just spiritual. Okay. That's not a definition. That's a not point of view. And you really want to function from the point of view of knowing what it is for you. And I know if I'm judging something, I'm not being conscious. I don't judge most things. I do have one or two things I judge. And 20 or 30 billion politicians. But other than that, I'm pretty much not judgmental. You know, and I do have some positive judgments. You know, this guy's really good at this. Is a positive judgment. What's he not good at? I don't know, because I don't want to see it. I just want to see that he's good. Why?
He wasn't pointing at me, by the way. Just to clarify.
When we're talking about good, I would never point at Dain. You know, but talk about a boy who can be bad. Oh yeah. And I admire that. So everything in life is a choice, and that's the thing I really would like the world to get. It's a choice. When you choose, you think about something, you choose it, you're going to actualize it. It will come to fruition. So if you say, my life sucks, it's going to suck. You know, if you say, somebody's going to suck me, that's a different choice. You know, but you got to see that what you say is what's going to actualize, you know?
Where do I go from that to the next
Yeah.
question? I mean, really, come on.
He has such a way with words, this guy.
I know,
You know,
it's so good.
Well,
Wow.
the one thing I always will do is be irreverent. I'm not going to be a reverent kind of guy. You know, I'm not interested in, you know, crossing myself or anything. You know, I double cross myself. I don't cross myself. So, you know, I'll get in my own way if I need to, but I'm always interested in what can we create? If all of us were creating at the ability we have, and I see a whole lot of you with great abilities doing, you know, patty cake, baker's man as your life. And it's like, is this all you want to create? What if you stepped up to everything you're capable of? What would the world be like? What would the world look like? What could you change in the world? And the thing is, my point of view is, you throw a rock in a pond, it creates ripples, and they go out and out and out and out and out and out from that center where you threw that rock. You don't know what the ripple is in the universe from you doing bars for one person. It has an effect. I had a lady who called me and she said, okay, well, why didn't you tell me this stuff was this? And I said, what are you talking about? She said, well, you know, it's like I did bars and I've done Access now for a year. And it's like, and I went to my family reunion, and for the first time in my life, I had an hour-and-a-half conversation with my father. She was 63 years old. For the first time in our lives, we had a family thing where nobody got mad and left and nobody got in a fight. She said, I'm doing the work and they're getting better. I said, well, I guess you're a kingpin for possibility. You know, you got to see the kingpin for possibility that you are. Because it's like you can do these things and all kinds of strange things happen as a result of it. I love it.
Wow. You know, Gary, you just spoke about choice and what that creates. And you've created Access Consciousness along with a lot of other things in the world.
Only one or two thousand.
Only one or two. And I wanted to ask you both a bit about, there's a beautiful space in Costa Rica called El Lugar.
Yes.
That you've created from such a different space of asking questions. Like,
yes. Well, talking to the land, you know, to me, the earth answers. I don't know whether it answers you, but it does me. I used to, when I was feeling bad, I'd go out to this one section in Santa Barbara where they had old forest that had never been touched. And I would go walking there. And as I walked, my body would start to feel better. The trees contributed to me, and I knew the earth was contributing to me. And I said, thank you, earth, for contributing to me. What can I contribute to you? And it's like, I didn't know other people didn't do that. I thought everybody asked, what can you contribute back? But it's not the case. You know, when I met Dain, it's like I said, yeah, we can do this. And he said, well, what can I contribute to you? And I said, what? And I went, earth. He's like the earth, wants to give back. I had lots of people who would take free sessions from me and take from me and take from me and take from me and take money from me and take anything else they could get from me. But few who would ever give back. And he was the first and the best. And he still is.
And I remember those days really well. And it still continues. And what El Lugar is for us is, so it's called El Lugar, which in Spanish is the place. And Gary wrote a book. If you haven't read it,
in English, it's the place. In Spanish, it's El Lugar.
Oh yeah, just like switch those around. Yeah.
Well, is there a difference between any language or are all languages interrelatable?
That.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's in English that it's the place. Okay, got it. Okay.
So,
and
yeah.
well, this book is such a phenomenal opening to an energetic way of being with the planet and each other, but also accessing the gift that each of us is. It's so beautiful. And it has a different way of doing relationships, sex, creating money. I mean, it's all in there. And it's so beautiful. It's one of those.
Tiny.
And the book is tiny. And, but the way he wrote it evokes so much energetically and opens up so much. It's very tough to read it without crying tears of gratitude and possibility. So, this resort in Costa Rica is created in communion with the land. We asked the land. And one of the elements of it was, we said, no tree is to be cut down.
Not one. But that was because of Avatar. I don't know about you guys, but every time I saw the mother tree destroyed, I would cry. No matter how prepared I was for it, it just made me cry because it's so what mankind does. It just destroys things as though that's the way to create, and it isn't. So I went there, and I drove into the place, and I'm driving in, God, this place is beautiful. And Claudia was with me, and she had found it, and she says, and this is the ugly part. So we went to the other side of the river, and she was correct. It was the ugly part. But we have gone in, and we've asked the place, el lugar, where to put the houses. Some of the houses have been twisted slightly, moved slightly. They're not in a row, you know, and the bank hates us because we're not doing it correctly.
Yes, we're not doing normal
Yeah.
by any means. And
So, yeah, you know, Costa Rica is a place with volcanoes. Do you think they have earthquakes there? Well, I lived in California where we had earthquakes, and when we had earthquakes, I saw foundations break and crack and, you know, set apart, but those were concrete. I saw houses that would move around a little bit. They'd have to come in and balance them up again and put them back on their foundations. Not on their foundation, but on their pylons. I went, we're going to do pylons here. They said, you can't do that, it's more expensive. And I said, I don't care. Because what they wanted to do is take off the top 3 meters. How many feet is that?
10.
10 feet. They wanted to take off the top 10 feet of topsoil so they could get down to bedrock so they could put in concrete foundations. I said, not happening. I said, I don't care if it costs more, we're going to do this. And we've done it. And we have these amazing little casitas that, have any of you been there?
Yes.
Yeah. Was it good?
It's amazing.
Beautiful. You know, and it's different, isn't it? And you just sit, you want to sit out on your balcony and enjoy the air. And the air always blows there, which I think is very interesting. And we tried to set up the houses so that the air would blow across and cool them, which is what they used to do in the 1900s.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have air conditioning.
And it's it's just a completely different way of creating and choices. And so you both were sharing this with one of the gentlemen we work with, Sean.
Yeah.
And he got so excited because he was like, I don't think people know exactly what you're creating here and like how different it is. And so he wanted to share his enthusiasm about El Lugar with everyone.
And there he is.
There he is. So he's going to share a little bit with us about it. And then we'll officially come back and wrap up this beautiful Global Bars Day.
Cool. Thank you. Mr. Sean,
No
you're
pressure.
on.
No pressure.
What a beautiful day. And you guys got to stop stealing all my thunder over there. That's all part of the presentation, so no more.
It's okay.
It's Gary's
All
fault.
right, well, let me share my screen. And yeah, as Emily said, for me, personally, I was blown away at this project because like many of you, I'd heard about El Lugar and all the amazing things that are supposedly going on there. But it wasn't until a couple days ago when I was asked to be part of the project and started working on this deck that I began to realize just how amazing it truly is. And so the purpose of this presentation is to give you all a sense of what's being created at El Lugar, because it is greater than I ever imagined, and it really, truly embodies what Access Consciousness is all about. And just as a heads up, when I started working on this project, I told Gary, I said, we need some professional photos done. Like, these are pixelated, and every photo I find's got a towel or work tools in it, and it was tough to work with. And what he said is he had not taken professional pictures for a specific reason. And I think we've all, gone to rent an Airbnb and we see the amazing pictures inside, and then we get there and we're super disappointed. And that's what Gary is trying to avoid, is he wants you to see the pictures, he wants you to see it as it truly is, even as it is still under construction. So, it really is amazing. So, on the left, you'll see some of the topics we'll cover, but the real reason I created this slide was to showcase this beautiful entry gate into El Lugar. And if you look at the top, you'll see a bell. And that bell is a relic from an Italian shipwreck that sank in the Caribbean back in the early explorer days. And Gary did this because Costa Rica has such a heavy Italian influence. because of those explorers. And it's a beautiful example of the lengths that Gary and Dain have gone to make this place truly unique. And you'll find this attention to detail all over the resort. So it's very special. So as an introduction, thousands of species, animals, and plants live on Earth. We all share this beautiful planet, and yet most of us don't treat it as our home. Human beings are supposed to be the most intelligent creatures living on planet Earth.
Wrong.
How then is it possible that we seem set on destroying it? What if now is the time to change the way we care for our planet? Not just in empty promises and bold declarations, but by actions and choices. A way that will allow us to change tracks and create a future where we can thrive, not just survive. And I think that beautifully sums up what this project is a living embodiment of that. And as Gary said, El Lugar is the beginning of teaching the world about the nurturance of the earth when you ask for contribution. So this project is located in Costa Rica. And for those of you who don't know where that is, like I didn't, it's right below Mexico and at the tip of South America. And it's in a city called Sarapiquí.
Sarapiquí.
Costa.
Sarapiquí.
Yeah. Sarapiquí. Okay.
He's learning
well,
Spanish, okay? Give him a break.
Totally different way, Gary. And now it's going to be a tough one. But it's just 2 hours north of San Jose, which is a big city there. And just to give you a sense of the timeline of this project, construction started in March 2020. We got the building permits from Sarapiquí on January 2020. We had a soft opening in July of 2022 where we are allowing our investors to stay on the resort. And the project grand opening is projected for July of 2023. Now, the master plan for El Lugar finished in 2018. Construction started shortly after. And what's interesting is I've been a part of projects like this in the past where you get a David Kubis up there holding his master project plan, right? And they've got CAD drawings and they're trying to build excitement. They build one model home on the property. And the developer takes money from investors and the project never goes any further and nothing else gets created. So this was kind of my point of view with this project. You know, I just heard about it. I hadn't really seen it. So you can imagine my surprise as I start comparing the CAD drawings to what's actually being created. And you almost can't tell the difference, right? I know it's a little pixelated, but across the top you have the CAD. You can see the double archways and the double archways in the real building. And then I see a picture like this, where you see all the casitas that have already been built. And that's when I realized that this project really is different. And to me, it's a beautiful expression of the 4 elements of creation, which are choice, question, possibility, and contribution. You can see, you know, the verandas back here with the pools that overlook, you know, it just really is a beautiful place. The resort itself, I wanted to pull in a few pictures that kind of describe the resort. You know, you have just the attention to detail with the tiling and the beams going across the top, the antique furniture that Gary had shipped in, you know, the bathroom with the blue tile, the outside veranda, these tiles on top of this roof over here on the left. Gary couldn't find anyone in Costa Rica that could make the tiles the way that they used to be done because they now put concrete in them. So he found a little provider in Nicaragua, a mom and pop shop, and had all of these tiles handmade and shipped to Costa Rica so that we could have that original look. And it's those kinds of attention, that kind of attention to detail, like I mentioned earlier, that you're just not going to find anywhere else. Now, the resort
That's ugly.
overview. It's hideous, isn't it? Jesus. The hotel itself will have 72 double rooms, 24 junior suites, 9 luxury suites, 2 presidential suites, and will have up to 240 guests. The pool itself is half Olympic size, and you can see here we've got, you know, the bar that you can swim up to, the veranda with another pool down here. And you can see it's still under construction, right? But it's in progress. And it's, if you look here, this is the inside where we've got the bar and the beams going across the top and the chandelier. And our main venue will hold up to 350 participants. We'll have a restaurant and bar, a clubhouse, a pool bar, and the Ruin event location. So what makes this project really unique is not a single tree has been cut. No hill has been leveled. We have cross ventilation underneath the casitas. There was no sealing of the surface with concrete whatsoever. Has an all-natural sewage system, solar panels, and ACD energy, and of course, silence, space, and relaxation. And now, I've heard
And
developers
horses.
make... We'll get there, Gary.
Okay.
And horses. And I've heard developers talk and have these same kind of pitches, and you know, it never really comes to fruition. So this is really the first project I've ever seen where what is being talked about and said is actually being delivered. And you can see here the auger that is used to drill into the earth so we don't have to build a foundation and pour cement. And that creates the platform that we can then build the casita on. And you can see under the casita, there's not a blade of grass was harmed in making this casita.
You have to say that like it's an advertisement on television. You know, no animal was harmed in the making of this film.
Yeah, exactly. And with the road, right? So we had, Gary and Dain had solicited several construction companies to come in and talk about how do we build these roads through the resort. And they all had the same point of view. And that was that in order to do them correctly, you had to cut down all the trees and remove 2 to 3 feet of topsoil, seal it with concrete. And by the way, that's going to cost you $2 to $3 million to get that done, right? So Gary and Dain just kept asking questions until they found someone who was willing to look at things differently. And they were able to achieve the same result without removing any topsoil, pouring any concrete, and for 1/8 of the cost. And their willingness to create something so different has caused all kinds of interesting challenges because almost no one has been able to let go of their fixed points of view. And that includes the developers, construction companies, and especially the banks who pulled our funding because we're not doing the project the way they think it should be done. So it's a really good thing that Gary and Dain have a different point of view, which is never give up, never give in, never quit, and always out-create, because this is what they've created because of that. And we're out-creating all of the people who are saying that this can't be done and trying to take the property from us. The furniture itself, Gary's original plan with the furniture was to have it all made in Costa Rica until he learned how much it was going to cost. And he really didn't like their furniture because it didn't look very good and was very uncomfortable.
Ugly.
So he decided, yeah, ugly would be a better way to put it. And when I asked him so he decided to go with antiques, and he has them shipped from all over the world to the resort itself. And you can see our staff unpacking the shipping containers. This is where we store all the antiques until the casitas are done and we can put them in place. And these are what they look like inside of the casitas. So you get a unique a unique casita each time with different looks but the same feel. And when I asked him how he found all of these antiques, what he said is he requested and they found him. And
Ask and ye shall
that's-
receive.
Ask and you shall receive, exactly. And if that's not an amazing example of that, I really don't know what is, because I can only imagine just the sheer amount of antiques we would have to find in order to, you know, to furnish all of these casitas. The resort will also feature a ranch, and here you have the horse stables, where Gary is going to breed Coaster Senseis, which is a very beautiful and intelligent horse, as well as Wagyu cattle. And if you've ever had a Wagyu steak, then no further explanation is necessary. But if not, what are you doing with your life? Because they are the best. And so not only do you get to enjoy seeing the horses roaming the resorts, but guests will also have a chance to ride the horses. And we'll offer a beautiful equestrian experience for all of our guests. El Lugar is connected to the Sarapiquí National Forest and the Rio Sarapiquí, which is a tributary of the San Juan River, which runs directly through the property. And because we didn't destroy the land and chop down all the trees and seal it with concrete, it's still home to a ton of exotic wildlife. Some of this wildlife includes sloths, toucans. We have 3 out of the 5 species on the planet on the resort. We have caimans, maracas, tapirs, and armadillos. And what's interesting is because we're connected to the national forest, Gary and Dain work with a couple of the locals that rescue the animals there, and they allow them to turn them loose on the property so they can either make a home on the resort or make their way to the national forest, which I thought was really cool. And our amazing staff. When resorts are built in Costa Rica, what usually happens is you have a big development company that comes in from San Jose, and they bring all of their own workers rather than employing the locals. But Gary and Dain had a different point of view, and they chose to employ and support the locals, and they truly love what we're creating at the resort. And they've even stuck by us in some really tough times that we've had with dealing with issues with the bank, and continued to build the property and worked with us as we could pay them. And at the end here, this is one of my favorite photos here. This is how the luggage will be delivered to your casita when you get to the resort. So they'll pull it up in this wagon and drop it off at your door. So I thought that was really awesome, and just speaks to the creativity and just how unique this place truly is. So we do have opportunity. We didn't want to make this presentation about investment at all. We do have opportunities there. If anyone is interested and would like to learn more about that, you can reach out to us here, at info@ellugar.com, or call us. We have a lot of opportunity there, and we'd love to invite you to that possibility. So I hope this gives you a really good sense of what Gary and Dain are creating. It was really awesome for me to really see it, and I can't wait to get there. So thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
One of the most amazing things for me personally was when Sean said he'd been where they had these images of stuff, but you never saw them completed, because they never completed them, because most things don't. But we don't start anything we can't finish.
Yeah, we never quit, we never give up, we never give
give
in, no matter what. Because if we did, none of y'all would be here in Access Consciousness.
Yeah.
And this is a similar thing. And the reason we wanted to present this was because Gary was talking to Sean, getting him involved in the project, and Sean was so excited. And also, it was like, man, this is exactly what we're talking about.
This is how you create a
difference
different
in the world.
This is how you create a different world. And we have some guys who are doing a documentary on what we're doing. And they, it's like they rearranged the room so it would look bigger. And I said, fuckers, put it back the way it belongs.
Yeah, represent it as it actually is.
Represent what is true, don't represent what is not true. And I always have the point of view, you need to be honest with what you're presenting so that what people get is what they get, not what they think they're going to get is going to disappoint them. I don't want to disappoint any of you, so I don't tell you how great bars really is. But you've seen some examples of it. You've seen some examples in your own life. I mean, when you can take somebody who's had a stroke and they get over it and they get their use of their body back in 4 or 5 bar sessions, you kind of realize you got something good going on.
The lady yesterday at the bars class, for those of you that were here, who,
That lady.
this one, hello. And she, we have not talked about that today yet, because she came up at lunch or at break and she said, when I got here, because she had a stroke and bars and body processes made it so she has access and function of her body again. And she said, yesterday when I got here, people couldn't understand me because it was, it was very present. She said, and after the morning, people said to me, wow, you're different. I can understand you now. Like literally, so I'm just acknowledging, because it's one thing to hear about this in secondhand, that sort of thing, or this happened this long ago, but yesterday, right here, wow.
Well, I know I speak on behalf of many people, and I just want to say thank you for not stopping, for keeping going, and creating so many beautiful things in the world.
Hey, I'm not going to die. I'm just going to keep going.
I know.
And when I die, Dain's going to stick his hand up my butt and use me as a dummy.
That needed to be said. I think,
I think that's a great way to end.
Totally.
Thank you guys so much for being a part of the 10th Annual Global Access Bars Day. So we will wrap up the stream now. Dr. Dain is doing a class later today in an hour and a half on possibilities. Everything is possible. So you guys can find out more about that. You go to accessconsciousness.com/everythingispossible. So we might see you there. If not, thank you so much for being here today, everybody. And thank you, Gary and Dain,
Thank
for
you
everything.
all. Thank you, Miss Emily, and thank you, beautiful people. Woo!
Okay, I get to get off now, right?
Thank you.
Bye-bye.